really well so far. The weather is beautiful out there, probably one of the best days we've ever had. It's really, really sunny out there today. You're listening to us live from Evington Road. I'm your host, Zuffar. And, how's your Ramadan going? I get a bit tired. That's certainly one of the problems I'm struggling with, tiredness rather than thirst or hunger. But we're joined by a very special guest, Dr. Omar Gabbar, who's one of the local consultants at Leicester Hospitals. Good afternoon, good evening to you, Dr. Gabbar. Assalamu alaikum.
Good afternoon.
Welcome
or
to
evening.
Evening, yes. Welcome to Radio Ramadan, and thank you very much for joining us today. Can you, first of all, Dr. Gabbar, give us a bit of background about you yourself? How have you ended up in Leicester, where you hail from, and what made you become a doctor?
Well, first thing is Salaam alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak for all yourself and your listeners. As you said, it's been an easy Ramadan. Starting with me, I am the son of a Syrian orthopedic doctor, and my mother is English. My father trained here in the UK. So I was born here in the UK, but then brought up in Syria. So I've always had the aspiration of being a medic through my family. I did my medical school in Syria, trained in orthopedics, and came to the UK to finish my training. The original plan was to go back, but somehow things changed, and I trained in Leicester, like Leicester, and my wife and I decided to stay in Leicester and serve the people of Leicester.
That's great. That's great for the people of Leicester. That's fantastic. I notice on your badge, you've got your NHS badge on, and you've also got the Leicester City badge on there as well.
Of course. So not only am I a member of the NHS here, I also have a season ticket with Leicester City.
Wow, fantastic club, and it's great to see you part of that of this great city. Dr. Gabbar, you're a doctor at Leicester Hospitals. You've been there quite a few years. What do you specialise in?
So I'm a trained orthopedic surgeon. I started my training here in Leicester in 2000, qualified as a consultant in 2006, and was appointed as a consultant orthopedic surgeon with a special interest, which is mainly spine surgery, and that's what I do for a living.
Excellent. So orthopedics is bones, isn't it, effectively? So it's the bones, your back, your arms, your legs, your hips, all your bones in your body, effectively.
That is correct. It's bones and joints. So we deal with all the issues that affect the disease of the joints and any injuries and fractures to the bone, anything that basically destroys the structure of the bone, then we can help it.
Okay, you're listening to Radio Ramadan on 87.7 FM. If you've got any questions, you might have a backache, you might have a hip problem, you might have a knee problem, whatever it might be, just give us you can message us or give us a call in. The studio number is 0116 4822 086, or you can send us a WhatsApp message on 077 488 55055. Dr. Gabbar, I struggle with a back problem. How can you make back problems better? There's lots of people out there who I'm sure struggle all the time with issues with their back. It's a common problem, driving too much or running or whatever it might be. What is good and bad for your back? And what can you do to try and help give your back some strength and make it stronger?
Well, you just touched on it. It's a very common problem. So according to science, 80% of us are going to complain of back pain at some stage in our life. But why is that? It's called the disease of the 20th century. It's modernization. We were originally designed to be hunters and farmers. That's what we did all our life. So we're designed to use our backs. Our backs are designed to be used.
There's not many hunters and farmers in Leicester City, I can assure you.
I'm pleased to hear. Yeah. Anyway, but that's evolution. That's how we've evolved. But our backs are designed to be used. And as 20th century has developed, we've developed a more sedentary lifestyle. We're sitting behind desks like we're doing now. We sit behind car wheels, so we're not as active. We're not using our backs as much. But funnily enough, I very rarely see a farmer come in to my clinic with back pain. It is usually the people who sit behind desks, long-distance lorry drivers. So it's that less sedentary lifestyle. Our backs are supported by an envelope of muscle, which are called the core muscles, which are our back muscles and our tummy muscles, and they're the ones who support this structure to hold our body upright. And if we don't maintain their fitness, inevitably we start getting back pain. So although back pain gets blamed on the spine, technically it's not the actual structure of the spine that hurts, it's the muscles and the ligaments around it. It's what they call the motion segments.
Yeah, so it's the muscles we've got to keep active.
That is correct.
So it's a myth that we actually think of the back, automatically think of the bone, but it's actually the muscle that we need to keep healthy. And how can you actually try and do that? What's the best things for trying to help your muscles then? What kind of activities are good?
Well, there are lots of activities you can do, from just simple going out and doing lots of walking, doing some stretching, exercising morning and evening. That's just a simple way of, because you have to maintain that flexibility, not just the strength of the muscles, but also maintain them nice and flexible. Because most of us, as we get older, we feel that our backs are getting stiffer. Because there's a natural evolution, the joints do stiffen up. So those muscles are having to work harder. We need to maintain their flexibility. Just simple yoga regularly will do it. Working out the gym. When I say working out the gym, I don't recommend going and doing dead weight weightlifting. What we really need to focus on is doing the cardiac sides of things. So cross trainer, exercise bike, rowing machine, things like that. Swimming, one of the best.
Swimming is one of the best?
One of the best, because you are moving every muscle in your body. It's gravity eliminated. Even if you do a doggy paddle up and down the pool, that is one of the best. So not only you're achieving two things here, it's maintaining first the flexibility and the strength of your core, but also working on your cardiac side of things. And that's another important thing.
What about cycling?
Cycling is good, yeah. But what we need to do is really a mixture of various exercises, not to focus on one exercise.
Okay. And, me personally, I've had a back problem, like everybody else, I'm sure. One of the things I do try and do now is before I pray in my Salah or Namaz, I actually do some stretches quickly. And, I think actually to a degree, your Salah actually helps doing some stretches as well and doing some exercise of some degree. So does that make a difference, and does that really help?
I think it does help. I think the salah and just the maneuvers of stand when you're doing the ruku' and the sujood, getting up and standing up and sitting down and all that, that is good. It gets your back moving, and I think doing it 5 times a day is great. I do see people having to sit on a chair because of their knee hurts or their hip hurts, but at least they're moving their back, and that's a very important thing. The more you move your back, the better. Now, people always get scared. If I move my back, it hurts. Am I doing any harm or damage? The answer is no. You're not doing anything harm or damage. Move is the way forwards.
So move is what?
Move.
And that's from the expert here. That's great advice. You're listening to Radio Ramadan on 87.7 FM. Our telephone number is 0116 4822 or you can send us a message on 077 488 55055. Dr. Gabbar, the other things that you do is hip and knee replacements. Why does that happen, and what can people do to if they are struggling with their knee and hips?
Well, hips and knees wear out as we age. It's a genetic thing. We're all programmed to age, whether we like it or not. Which joint decides to age first is dependent on our genetic makeup. We see more commonly the knees age more quicker than in the Asians compared to the Caucasians. It's more the hips. But at the end of the day, we're designed to wear out. Obviously, I don't do them now, but I trained as an orthopedic surgeon when I first started my career. I used to do these. So hip replacements and knee replacements are usually the gold standard for replacing a really worn-out, painful hip. But there are alternative treatments first, because at the end of the day, a joint built by Allah lasts much longer than one made by Johnson & Johnson. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. And lots of people listening to this might be waiting for a hip operation or a knee operation. How long does it take to recover from them? And is there any side effects? And how quick are the operations being done at the moment?
Well, I mean, the hip and knee operation is the most routine orthopedic procedure. And that's why every orthopedic trainee trains to do hips and knees. I train to do them, and it's to remember how to do them. It's
very common, effectively.
It is one of the most common procedures nowadays, and it is the best life-changing procedure. So it really improves quality of life. Now, because they're more routine, people, they don't take as long as they used to. People are up and about, mobilizing much quicker. So the average stay, 10, 15 years ago was like 10 days, then it moved to 7 days. Now it's 3.5 days. It's back to the same principle, move. Now we understand the body better. We understand that we need to keep our whole body moving.
Yeah, so, because people are worried about these things. They think, oh, well, my mum's going for a hip operation or a knee operation. They shouldn't really worry. They will be quite quick to come in and out of hospital and get back up and running, really.
That is true, and that's why you do them. Here you've got someone who's really crippled because of the pain, their joints not moving, they're really struggling, and in fact, because they're less active, there's a knock-on effect on everything, their respiratory, their cardiac system. So you need to get people moving again. And if I've got a joint that I will replace with that worn-out joint that's painful to a pain-free, moving joint that gets that patient moving, go for it. Yes, there is surgery. Surgery doesn't come without its dangers. But that, when you think about the dangers of surgery nowadays with all the facilities and the preparation that the patients are put through, it is a very, very low risk.
Yeah,
it is, compared to ignoring it, living a sedentary lifestyle, you're more likely to have, heart and cardiac problems.
Yeah, so what you're basically saying is if you need a hip replacement or need a knee replacement, get it done, because if you don't stay active, you'll have all the other problems of high blood pressure, diabetes, and heart attacks and everything else, and that will be worse than actually the other. The
fear of the surgery itself, and it's a common thing, But again, it's a common thing, that the fear of pain as well, the fear of surgical pain. But we've got all these lovely now drugs that we can use to help with pain relief post-operatively. And we do know the quicker patients move, the less painful they are.
Yeah, and the longer they will live.
And the other thing is, a lot of people are scared of having a general anesthetic. 80% of joint replacements now done are through spinal anesthetics. So you're not put under a general anesthetic. And people get a bit worried, oh, am I going to be actually hearing everything? Would I be actually giving the surgeon a hand, halfway through my procedure?
Yeah.
The answer is no. They do give you a bit of sedation, but you're not under a general anesthetic. And a lot of patients, once they've had it, they'll have it again. Because the first thing they will say, well, as soon as my operation was over, I could have a cup of tea. Which, if you had a general anesthetic, don't. Yeah, that's very good advice. And operations at the moment, how long is the wait? Because we keep hearing on TV lots of sort of different sort of data coming out that it's taking a lot, a year, 2 years. How long is the waiting, and is that improving? It is improving. We are really working hard, but we have to be realistic. We've only really started to go back to what was normal pre-pandemic, and it's still not 100% normal. It's 80% normal since the beginning of this year. But all the last 18 months to 2 years, all the focus of the NHS resources was to focus on treating the people with COVID, and that has caused a massive delay for all the patients who are waiting, for back surgery, orthopedics in total, and all the other specialties. Yes, the waiting times are nearing 2 years. I know by June we would have knocked in orthopedics down that waiting time to less than 2 years, and it's working down. And as long as we don't go into another pandemic, as long as people don't test positive, and we should be able to work through these lists and hopefully in the next 12 to 24 months bring those waiting times down. But it involves a lot of resource.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and you do these operations, and you're a surgeon at Leicester Hospitals. How is it going, and how is the staff being able to cope? Because I know they've been under extreme pressure for a long time, haven't they? Some of the staff there. Well,
it is basically the staff, and that's and remember, the success of the operation is not just the surgeon. I think you have to think about the whole team involved in this whole what I call chain.
And I think people forget the whole team behind the surgery.
That is correct. People forget there's an anaesthetist, there's an assistant anaesthetist, there's the team in theatre, there's the team who pre-assess the patient prior to getting them to surgery to make them fit for the surgery, the team that look after them on the ward after surgery, the physiotherapist, the nursing staff, the occupational therapist, all those. It's a whole chain of medical professionals that deliver that. And people forget that during the pandemic, all these members of staff had to change their job plan and start, upscaling and up training to treat people with COVID. So they've never had a break. And now the pressure is we need to get the work done. So although a lot of people have been furloughed and people were, working from home, the members of staff, even down to the actual porter who takes the patient from the ward to the theatre, from the ward, they never had a break. And it's staff burnout is what we have right now. And that's, at the current stage, our biggest issue to aid us in delivering. And that's why I say it's 80%, not 100%, because people are sick because they are fatigued.
And there's lots of them, isn't there? There's so much team behind that doing that one operation. And they're not really rewarded adequately, are they?
Well,
junior staff.
Well, it's not just the junior staff. Everybody think it's the doctor, it's that surgeon. Yes, he's the one you actually face. But at the end of the day, we have to be realistic. It's every person I mentioned earlier on should be rewarded
according
for
to
this work that they're doing, for the work that they've done. So there was a lot of clapping, which is great. That gave them that moral boost. There was a minimum pay rise, especially for the nursing staff and the junior doctors, and they're the ones who actually do the legwork on the ward. And I just feel that they should be rewarded more, and I think that's where things should go, not just financially, but they need a lot of support, because I don't think most doctors don't do, and nursing staff and people who go into the medical professional don't do it for the money. They do it because they want to do this job and they enjoy doing it. But that's what we need to be helping them, is giving them that environment to enjoy their job, not really make it a stressful environment to work in. The financial side is an extra thing. I go into the hospitals fairly regularly and sort of thank staff and I was there at Christmas time going across the wards. It's so important to recognise the valuable contribution of all those people, because without that, we won't be here. We would not succeed. That is true. I can't do my operation if I didn't have all the members of staff that work under me. And one set I've forgotten is actually the admin staff. The people who organise the bookings, the people who type up the letters, and organise lists. They are all part of that group.
We had a couple of weeks ago, we had Richard Mitchell in, the chief exec of Leicester Hospitals, and he was saying, look, come and work with Leicester Hospitals. We've got lots of vacancies, lots of staff vacancies across the board. Work experience, come and join us and be part of the team. And, you've made it really interesting and made it real live, because there's so many support jobs available for people to make a difference.
That is true. I mean, what I think I didn't allude to, I'm Deputy Clinical Director as well for the whole musculoskeletal and specialist surgery. I was at the board meeting yesterday, and we had a success story of a young man who finished a degree in university, didn't know where he wanted a career path, and joined. There's an apprenticeship. There are apprenticeships through the NHS. He didn't realise all the job opportunities that are available in the NHS outside just being a doctor and a nurse. There's managers, there's facilities, engineers, and there's so much out there. NHS is one of the biggest employers, and UHL is one of the biggest employers in town. If you're looking for a job, go there. Go and join any of those apprenticeships that are available. There's so many career pathways that you can actually join. And it's not just about, doctors and nurses. Yeah,
and it's so rewarding. I mean, you've loved your job, I'm sure, because I can tell from you just by talking to you.
Yes. Everybody, this is what I'm saying, the pride about the people who work in the NHS, they don't do it for the money. They do it because they really enjoy what they're doing. They're helping people. They're delivering a service. They're returning people, either as they're treating their cancers, they're treating their ailments, or getting them out of pain, which what we do in orthopedics.
Great, that's fantastic. You're listening to Radio Ramadan on 87.7 FM. Our telephone number is 0116 488 22086, or you can send us a text message on 077 488 55055. You're listening to Zuffar Hack and Dr. Omar Gabbar on health and well-being. Dr. Gabbar, you apart from your work as a consultant in the NHS, you originally are linked with Aleppo. You grew up in Aleppo, I think.
That is correct.
Is your family from Aleppo, and that in Syria?
Well, actually, my father is from a town in the east called Deir ez-Zor, which is on the Euphrates River. But he went and worked as an orthopedic surgeon, and he worked for University of Aleppo. In fact, he was the medical director of University Hospital in Aleppo, and I went to university there. So we grew up in Aleppo and brought up in Aleppo. And it's a city that's dear to me. It is a beautiful city. It's a historical city. It's one of the oldest cities that's still living. And yes, all my childhood memories are there.
And when you see it now,
well,
because everybody knows what happened in Aleppo, the destruction that was caused in Aleppo, and how. I mean, I just try and put myself in your shoes and think about how I'd feel if I saw Leicester like that. It'd be heartbreaking.
Well, it's heartbreaking to see any city being like destroyed unnecessarily because of differences of opinion. That's what I see it. So, yes, my heart bleeds when I see Aleppo. And nowadays, a lot of it, luckily the fighting has stopped in Aleppo since 2016. But when I look at what's happening right now on the news, I can draw parallels. I mean, I saw pictures of the city of Mariupol and some of the buildings, that airline view of, it wasn't. I think it was a drone view of the buildings there, and I can show you exactly the same picture from an area called Masek and Hanano in Aleppo, and the way it was destroyed. And at the end of the day, as human beings, we need to help the people who are caught in that, because with every conflict, there are no winners.
Everybody's a loser.
Politicians might win and lose, but the human beings who, like yourself and myself, who wants to go on and get on their daily life, they're the losers in whichever conflict you talk about.
Yes, and so you wanted to do something about that. A few years ago, I heard you on the radio, and after that, we met up a few times. So what have you done? What did you do, and how did you manage to achieve making a difference, really, in people's lives?
Well, this is the thing, as a doctor, you're a humanitarian. You deal with human beings, you appease pain. And I looked at it and said, look, I'm not part of this politics, and I do not want to be a part of it. I need to make a difference. I owe it to the country that I was brought up in. And the only thing we could see, and this was a group of Syrian diaspora living here in the UK, successfully businessmen and doctors, and we created a charity to help the people of Syria. And that's what I've been doing since 2012. The charity still works. We've developed it from the 6 of us, where we used to do everything ourselves, going out to Turkey, across the border into Syria to help. And we've developed into a big, well-organized charity with a good turnover of about 25 million in donations from across the world.
Wow, it's fantastic. And did you ever think when you started it would grow so big?
No. I never even thought when I started my life here that I was going to do something like this, but it's the most rewarding. It's most rewarding because you see that you're making a difference. It might be a small difference, but you're making a difference. Because when you see suffering at such an extent, people who've lost livelihoods, people who've lost families. I know people who went to university with me who lost their whole family in one night by a barrel bomb dropped by a helicopter. So to see that devastation, you reflect on your life and you think, well, actually, everything we earn here, everything we gain here is really materialistic. At the end of the day, there are people who have far worse conditions than us, and this is what we should be doing. Every penny, every effort. You don't have to. This is people always look at it as actually just spending money. It's not just about spending money. You can do so many other things to help. From just supporting propaganda to keep it up on the news, to people to be aware that there are still people living in camps, that is in the freezing cold in the winter, in the scorching hot in the summer. And that's been their life for 10 years. There are kids who've now grown up in a refugee camp. They don't know what a normal city is like. They don't know what it's like to go to a school. Yeah. And that's how bad it is.
That's how bad it is. And is that still happening now? Because it's off the news now, effectively. And people no longer hear of Syria. It doesn't get a mention on the news ever.
Yeah.
And the TV cameras are away. There's no reporting. Yeah. So how bad is it out there at the moment?
Well, it still is bad because there's a stalemate. The Syrian problem's never been solved. Assad and his regime has stayed on, so he's cut out a piece of his land supported by the Russians. There's the other side, which is where my father originally comes from, in the east of the Euphrates. That's been cut out by another group, and then there was the other group that were called the rebels, the people who stood up to the government. They've been cut out a piece in the north. And so what you have is a stalemate. There is no functioning country. There's no governance. There's nothing. People have no real means of proper living. apart from just an internal market. And there's all these sanctions, which is great if it actually achieves its goal. Unfortunately, with all sanctions, they don't affect the people that they're supposed to target. They affect the people, the Joe average person on the street, and they're the ones who really suffer. So they suffer both ways.
Yeah. And Aleppo as a city is very similar to Leicester in lots of ways, from what I remember. It was a clothing manufacturing base for clothing and jumpers and lots of factories there.
That is true. So Aleppo was always the industrial city of Syria. Damascus was all the traders, and the biggest trade in Syria is the yarn. Most Syrians make their money from producing material. The damask material is famous all through history. So that's how most of the affluent and the middle class of Syria made their money. My brother is one of them. He used to trade in the yarn and still does. And then that's how people made their living. That was all destroyed. The whole manufacturing industry was destroyed out there. And yes, depends on which area your factory was. So if you were on the western side, which was the government-controlled area, it survived. If it's on the eastern side, which was the non-government-controlled area, it didn't survive because that whole area was bombed to hell by everybody. There was no mercy.
And so you've been out there helping hospitals and providing equipment out there. How was the hospital infrastructure there after this, or how is it going at the moment? Is it improving, or is it still the same? And is medicine and vital life-saving equipment getting there or not?
Well, it depends on which area you are in. So the so-called rebel-held area, which is Idlib province, because that's out of control of the government, so we have better access. All the international organizations have better access. So that's what our job is right now. We are developing a good, not just a hospital structure, a whole hygiene structure, and that's including drainage, sanitized water and everything. And now slowly all these refugee camps, which are tents, are being converted into small little built-up houses in town. So there's lots of charities out there that do that. So that is it. But I do know it's the areas that are still under government control, and with the severe sanctions, the people in there are suffering, and they are the ones. And I look forward to being able to deliver aid through that stream. There is a lot of talk about it doing through the United Nations. Right now it's down to whether, if they can guarantee our safety, we will deliver it, because that's now the other area of need.
And it's across Syria. The hospitals, are they managed? Obviously, is there an infrastructure for hospitals? I know at one stage there wasn't, but is it back up and running at all?
Well, there is. I mean, so the government-controlled areas, they've still managed to keep the national hospitals that were there. And we had a fantastic health service, but it's what's left of it is a skeleton of it. So the reality is, and all the UK, the American, the Western trained doctors left that country. I mean, there's been a brain drain, because obviously they all moved out for their own life safety. So they've moved. A lot of people have come back to their original European training countries. Some moved up into Dubai. Some moved up into Egypt. So this structure is down to a skeleton. You might still have the building, but you don't have that. The medical professionals and the training and the staff that you can staff it with.
And you're listening to Radio Ramadan on 87.7 FM. Our telephone number for the studio is 0116 4822 or you can send us a message on 077 488 55055. You mentioned then about Syria and training. Is medicine a popular sort of vocation for people in Syria? And is Syria a net exporter of lots of medics? Very much like Egypt as well. Well,
I draw India, Pakistan, Egypt, Syria, and Iraq. They are the biggest producers of educated people, and because their universities overproduce trainees, that they don't have enough jobs for them to go to within their countries. So a lot of them seek. I look at my whole group of friends that we qualified in 91 from Aleppo University Hospital. none of us actually live in Syria. I mean, this is before even the conflict. I mean, I moved here back in 1996, and we all moved out. Most of my friends are actually in the United States. Yeah. Very successful doctors out there. And I can draw parallels with, the Pakistani community, the Indian community, the Asian community. We, exactly, we are intelligent people. It's just we don't have the opportunities to develop our skills in our countries. So finding an opportunity, being welcomed in the UK to deliver it is always a bonus.
But you still have that link back home, and very much like everybody else from everybody else in the world.
Of course.
And talking about your charity, it obviously takes a lot of your time. I know that you've spent, how many trips have you made to Aleppo and to do various aid trips, and what has your been darkest moment? Because I'm sure there has been, because it's always very difficult when you're doing charity work, because not everybody understands it really.
Well, yes, I did it many times. I stopped counting, and it's not just myself. So, I don't take the credit myself. So my 6 other friends who helped develop the whole charity, and 2 of them continue to do that. They've now, it's like their permanent job. But my darkest moment was actually sitting out there one night and dealing with some of the injuries that were inflicted there. And this was something that was self-inflicted, and I use this as an example. You go out there and you want to do help, and you buy a whole lot of blankets for the refugees, because you can see it's cold, it's freezing cold, and you get them all these blankets, and you want to get the maximum number for the amount of money you have. Yeah. So you end up with these acrylic blankets. And I was holding a shift in one of the children's hospitals that we helped build. And there was this family who, of children, a mother and father, it was winter, it was cold. They were all wrapped up in these lovely blankets, but they were mainly acrylic, and they left a candle that tipped and lit the whole thing. And obviously, fire in acrylic just goes through. And that was my darkest moment. I think, these are things that we've actually given them to help them, and it's actually caused harm. But it triggers. Then we met another group. We met up a charity called Shelter Box that we worked very well with, and they really helped us in developing and avoiding all these things. Like, Middle East, you've got plenty of sun. So converting, using, solar power for lighting, for heating, develop and educating people about that. The people in Syria weren't poor. They had low income, but even the poorest person there had a roof over his head. He had a fridge full of food and had a vehicle of some sort. For them to suddenly be devastated like this, the Syrians have always been proud about helping and aiding people. I mean, they've taken over historically, from the Greeks in the earliest 20th century, the Armenians across the border, the Kurds. Most of the Kurds in Syria are actually refugees. And then through the history, the Palestinians, the Iraqis, and they housed them in their own homes. I mean, the number of times the Lebanese from their conflicts came across the border and were housed. For now, the Syrians having to become the refugees. It's just not something that, it's acceptable. And so it's a completely different, ethos.
Yeah, it's a very difficult one for you, I'm sure. Yeah. The thing that I really sort of get from what you're saying to me is, and I was looking at this just last night, the numbers of refugees. Syria was a country, and Syrians as a race are the people who take in refugees.
That is correct.
From all their surrounding areas, the Iraqis, the Kurdish, and everything else. Yeah. They were never used to actually receiving any aid.
That is correct.
Was that a little bit of a shock for them as well?
Well, it is a big cultural shock. People weren't accepting it to the start with, but they had no choice. So the other bits we used to face is resentment. People are not happy that they're like that, and you're going to help, but then the looked at you is now, by you helping us, you're now a problem. And it's interesting to see that, and you're not prepared to that. You go out there to help, and to suddenly turn up with a bag of second-hand clothes to help them. Well, what's this? You're giving us hand-me-downs. Well, these are good quality clothes, but so people didn't accept that, because they're not used to it. Yeah. But you learn, you work around it, and you work with the people and understand their frustration, understand why they're that. You don't take it personal. And that's just one example of the things.
And were you able to get time off from the hospitals? Were they lenient with you when you were going out to do some of these trips and everything else?
I just took it as part of my annual leave. But everybody knew about it. I mean, gosh, a couple of years ago, the hospital did a walk. In fact, Richard Mitchell was then head of ops. He came and joined in that walk before he moved up to the north to become a chief executive there. I know you donated an ambulance for it as well. So I mean, there's been I've had a lot of support. I have had a lot of support from my colleagues.
Yeah, and it's good. It's actually, Ramadan is for the time of giving and everything else, but it's about all year round. We should be doing that. People should be doing that all year round. And you sort of amplify that really, because you do. I know you've been doing it for many years, and you're carrying on doing that sort of charity work. You've got the opportunity, and you've done it, and you've been out there. Do you think things will change in the future? Are you hoping that there'll be some major drastic change in the future, and is there hope on the horizon?
Well, there's always hope. As Muslims, we always live in hope. I mean, inna ba'da al-usri yusr. I mean, that's it. There's hardship, and that's part of our test. Allah puts us through tests, and we are tested for that. And I think at the current stage, the period of Syria, and now we also work in Yemen, we're in a much worse situation there. We are being tested.
We've been tested.
And to prove that test, we have to, as Muslims, join these resources and join all our resources to help and aid our Muslims who are across the world. The people in Afghanistan, they're suffering again as well. So this is my message, that at the end of the day, we should never leave hope. There's always hope. We believe, we are Muslims, and if we are fasting the 29 or 30 days of Ramadan every year, we pray 5 times, and we should believe in what Allah decides.
Even Ramadan is a test, isn't it?
It is a test. It's a test about our tolerance. It's not just the food and drink. That's the symbolic bit.
Yes.
This is, we are being tested. I can't be angry. I can't swear. I can't do this. I can't do that. That's the whole idea. It's about avoiding temptation. There's nothing there stopping me picking up a glass of water right now. No, it's that fear that Allah's watching over me.
Yes.
And I think that is the message that we need to take there. And that's what we should be using as, there is hope. There is hope. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know where it is. If I knew, gosh, then life will be boring.
Yes.
Allah decides that, and it's His decision. It might be not my generation. It might be my kids.
But we must do our part.
We have to.
Play our part.
We have to play our part. We can't be complacent.
No, can't be complacent. And we were talking a little bit earlier, before we started the interview. We were talking about cancers and colon cancers and screening and lots of those sort of things. People should be going out to do their screens if they've got any screening that is required, because lots of people get these letters coming through their post. What's your advice to them, and what do you try and do?
Well, my advice is to go for these screenings, and this is an opportunity. You live in a first world country, the 5th strongest economy in the world, and you're getting this opportunity to be screened. Why waste it? Because identifying cancer at an earlier stage is treatable. There's the advance in medical treatments right now. There are lots of things that you never say you can cure cancer, but you can suppress it and put it to sleep. So you should be using all the facilities of screening. I mean, we talk about cancer, but I look after ophthalmology as part of my deputy clinical director, and one of their biggest screening programs is the diabetic eye screening. And as Asians, we are all high risk of diabetes. And it's a free screening. It's a quick thing, just a photograph of the inside of your eye. Go and do it. But it's our Asian community that are not the ones that actually don't use it, and we should be. And I plea all my brothers to go out and do it. It's not scary, get that test.
It's just an actual picture of your eye.
That's it. It's the picture of the inside of your eye, and you don't know, that could save your eyesight. The worst thing you can lose is your eyesight. It is the best gift that Allah's given us. So why lose it? In fact, it is upon us, that we should be actually looking after it. It's part of our religion. We should be looking after our health.
Many people have got a bit of time during Ramadan. going to have the eye screen. You can have it done at opticians as well. Lots of opticians.
You can do it through opticians, but the NHS have that. The
screening
diabetic
test.
eye screening. They have clinics, and we know who the patients are. We send all these letters out.
But people don't respond, and you need them to respond. Yeah,
we need them to respond. We need them to go to that appointment. It's there, and it's only twice a year. It won't take a few minutes to do,
and it'll help save their eyesight.
It will help save their eyesight.
Wow, and that's
early detection of issues with diabetes. Do it. Do it.
Excellent. And you were talking. You're a vegetarian now. You've stopped eating meat recently. I know that we had this discussion earlier. And what's the reason behind that? And how do you feel by doing that?
Well, I must say I feel healthier.
Yeah.
And realistically, as a modern first world country, we high meat eaters. We overeat meat. And especially processed meat. For health reasons, I was Mr. Barbecue. I used to enjoy my meat and I used to enjoy my barbecue. So for health reasons, I had to reduce my meat intake. I'm now down to a plant-based type of. I wouldn't call myself a vegetarian because I don't do it from a religious point of view, and if the food doesn't have to be separated from the products when I eat it. But most of my food is vegetable based, and I've never been as healthy as I've never been. It is one of the best things. I'm not suggesting that people should all leave meat, but probably reduce it. And I look at it historically. So my grandparents in Syria, Syrian food is very famous. People might know it as Lebanese food, but it's the same. Your hummus, your tabbal, your tabbouleh, and all that. And your kibbe. And if you look at it, it's very plant-based. And historically, although my grandparents were affluent, but they would eat meat twice a week. Meat was also as a luxury. Most people will be eating, vegetable-based type food. And I think that's what we really need to be looking after ourselves. If you're not worried about the environment, at least worry about your health. And, the charred meat that's black, and all this processed meat, which you don't know. So
it's actually something that's black, that's burnt effectively, is not very good.
It's not very good for your gut.
No.
Apparently, anything that's charcoal, even a piece of toast that's charcoal, doesn't appear to be a good thing for your gut.
That's the latest research, isn't it?
And the processed meat, all these luncheons and things, you just do not know all the chemicals that are going into them.
No, exactly, and I've got to say, you've certainly got I've got the face for radio. You've got the face for TV as well as radio.
Really?
Yes, definitely. Okay, so you're looking healthy and younger than.
I don't know about younger, but I just feel healthy. I need to look after my health.
No, but it is really important to get those messages out there. The ophthalmology. If you need an eye test, you can get diabetes, all free of charge.
Diabetic eye screening and any screening, I really would advise everybody in my community to go and do it. Whether it's a screening for cancer, whether it's a screening for your blood pressure, your diabetes itself. But the ones that I'm directly involved in as a medical director is the diabetic eye screening.
And lots of patients always tell me that consultants are very good when they go and end up getting to the hospital. Consultants are very good. They don't just look at the problem they're facing in front of them. They'll say, how are you generally? Are you okay? Is there anything else we can do for you? And that is really, really key to lots of people because lots of reassurance. So, doctors are out there to help patients, and that's what they're there to do, and that's what you want to do.
Yeah, that's what we've always trained to do.
Yeah.
We're there to help.
It's we're running out of time, unfortunately, Dr. Gabbar. If there's anybody out there who has any issues relating to the NHS and health service, they're more than welcome to contact me. My telephone number is 0781 710 7022. My name is Zuffar. You can message me or you can WhatsApp me anytime you like. Any issues, please let me know. But we've got Dr. Omar Gabbar in the studio. Thank you very much, Omar, for coming in. Really, really appreciate it, and great listening to you, listening to your charitable work as well as your work in the NHS. Thank you very much for coming in.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, and Ramadan Mubarak, and in 10 days' time, hopefully,
Eid Mubarak. Eid Mubarak, yes. I mean, it's not too early. We might as well start our preparations now, really.
No. Once we pass the midline, mid Ramadan, that's it. It's finished.
So, Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. You're listening to Radio Ramadan on 87.7 FM. Please join us next week on the same time.